Hello and welcome along to the first ever podcast edition of the Fourmation. You might well have heard us on Phantom Radio. We are for University of Derby football journalism students, and we are on a Skype call today. Normally we would have a couple of shows a week. That hasn't happened for the last nearly 2 months, isn't it? It's
yes.
We're approaching the 6 week mark. Mark. If we start, first of all, I will go round everyone. We'll introduce ourselves, and then we'll get on with things. So I'll start with Harry. Do you want to introduce yourself, Harry?
Yep, so I'm Harry. As you can probably tell by the background if you're watching on the YouTube or a Twitter clip, I'm a Southampton fan. It's a lot sunnier here than Derby, so I feel like I'm in my natural element. But yeah, like George says, I go to the University of Derby, doing the Football Fourmation podcast. So I'm quite excited in this new venture that we're going to do. Hopefully weekly, maybe fortnightly, depending on when everyone's available.
Devon, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Devon. As you can tell by the video, it's probably better we are sometimes on radio with our looks. But yeah, I'm back in rainy Sheffield, which is always, whether it's Derby or Sheffield, it's always raining. Yeah, missing football, that's about it.
And Sam, finally.
Yes, my name is Sam. I'm back residing in the most beautiful part of the country, that is Grimsby, and I'm looking forward to getting started with this podcast.
Yeah, it's...
guys. And I'm not sure I even introduced myself. I'm George. I'm back here in Suffolk. I'm a Norwich City fan, as you might be able to tell by the sign. It's a sign on the road if you're just listening online. And yeah, but we should say as well, we're not supposed to be back in our homes and doing this over Skype. We should still be at university, but of course we are not at university because of the ongoing COVID-19 situation. We are still in lockdown, but COVID-19 has not just had an impact on universities and everything else. It has also had an impact on football, and we are here to talk about football. And of course, this has been going on the 13th of March. The Premier League and the EFL suspended their fixtures following the act of several leagues across Europe. And does someone want to kind of step up and summarise the situation at the moment before we discuss it? Devon, do you want to?
Yeah, no. So obviously the National League was pretty much one of the first ones to go. The Eredivisie did go last week, and then subsequently the Ligue 1 went. A lot of them, I feel, were probably close to conclusion anyway, but obviously they've not felt right to start again. The interesting one is that Germany were the first and probably the only one to actually set a date set in stone, which is the 9th of May. They've got a bunch of rules that I've written down here. They've told players to avoid sexual contact with partners. Teams will be allocated one hotel each or have one floor of the facility. Social distancing rules still in place outside facilities, so they're advising them not to go into like a training ground, but they're advising them to go out and actually do workouts out there and runs. The attendance at fixtures will be limited to a maximum of 300 people. That won't be fans. It's just, players, staff, security staff, journalists, ball boys, and a handful of police officers. And the players will be shuttled, followed by testing on arrival, using the ear thermometers, as we've seen on like the news. And the ones on the bench, which is an interesting one, will remain rows apart instead of the dugout. Wow. So what does everyone think of that then, Harry?
It's drastic, but it's what's going to happen, especially with the Bundesliga. It's always good that football's going to come back. Hopefully, like they said, it's going to be when it's safe as possible. And obviously, we love football, but we need to be safe because otherwise the problem will escalate further. But I'm looking forward to it. I've never watched the Bundesliga before, but you'll be darn certain.
Like, you've not watched a single minute.
I've watched highlights, but I don't subscribe to BT, so I don't have them like constantly in my ears. But You'll be certain that I'll be watching it now if that's the only football that I can watch,
Wow.
especially now because the season's still at a very exciting pace. It's not like Ligue 1, which if that came back, I wouldn't be as interested because you know who's going to win and lose the league and obviously maybe go down. But I'm excited for the Bundesliga to return.
It's definitely ambitious. I mean, the situation's a lot different in Germany though in terms of football. You know, a lot of the clubs are not owned by these huge, massive people who are worth billions of pounds or euros that can keep the team afloat themselves. A lot of them a lot of their fans have stakes in the clubs, and I think there was like 4 top flight German teams that are at serious risk of going down if they couldn't get any gate receipts for much longer, and also up to half of the second division. So obviously a lot of fans in Germany aren't happy, of course, not being able to go to the games, but if that's what they have to do to keep these teams alive, then
I think it's a very valid point you make there, Sam, about the Bundesliga. The fact that in Germany the situation hasn't been quite as bad as definitely in the UK or in Italy or other countries such as that. So the fact that they're restarting isn't really a surprise. We know that the Premier League, it's being reported that they're working very hard to get it going. We've had stuff like Project Restart is their whole idea about getting it back going. But realistically, given the death numbers are, they're plateauing, as they say. I know they're expected to go down, but they are still plateauing. Do you actually think it's worth the risk of more people being endangered? I know that behind closed doors is the idea, but there's still a lot of risk involved, isn't there?
Yeah, it's definitely still a huge risk. I mean, they're trying to limit it, but they're saying there could still be over 300 people in and around the stadium for one game. So if one player or one person of the media or one of the staff contracts it again, then it's going to be all over again. So it's definitely a risk, yeah.
Devon, there's been a lot of talk about the sort of changes that are going to have to be made in England if it comes back in, sort of 5 subs each game. And it's also spoken about that in terms of broadcasting, it might be similar to a World Cup tournament where they've got, 3-4 games on every day. What sort of effect could that sort of schedule have on these players when they already haven't been playing for a month?
Yeah, I think the 5 subs is probably the reason why, because there's going to be a lot more tired legs. The thing that I find weird is that there seems to have all of a sudden been a rush towards getting football back. With the government coming out and publicly slating footballers at first with the whole pay situation. I for one can't see it going ahead just because of there's too much of a high risk of this second peak that the government keep going on about. And, no matter how much because can you imagine us every day we've been wanting football back and we're just downstairs, and imagine if football were on 4 times a day or something like that. We'd have it. However, it'd be more critical if, because of that, it made things and matters worse and we're not waiting. But I'd rather try and get the situation sorted as soon as possible and maybe start again or start a new season, clear this null and void and start again in October time, maybe November if it takes that long, and actually get back to normal where we're not having to go back to lockdown or social distancing and, have changes rather than rushing it and it getting a whole lot worse.
It will be interesting to see how a lot of these Bundesliga and Bundesliga 2 teams deal with it, not having the gate receipts, but also still having to, pay for their players, these fully professional teams. And it's going to be interesting to see financially how they cope with it.
The thing is, the Dortmund chief executive, I'm probably gonna butcher this name, Hans-Joachim Watzke, he claimed that Bundesliga is actually going. There's a lot of teams, not just the teams, but the league might, in fact, go under if it doesn't resume. Which, with the amount of money in football, you won't think we'd get near anywhere near this situation, would you?
And also, as well, that there's a lot of talk of, we voided the season, but we'll be back in August. There is absolutely no guarantee that you're going to be back in August. probably certainly not with a crowd there. I mean, maybe in Germany it might be different because I know that their lockdown has been dropped now, I believe. But I just think there's a lot of risk involved, and I think that is ultimately why the Premier League are determined to get it on, because financially they don't want to lose out. But morally, should that be the case? I don't know. It's a difficult one.
There's just no certainty at the moment. I think that's what's angering some people. Like, nobody seems to know what's going on and what they want to do.
Yeah, you've also seen like the public are not even, adhering to some of the park rules. Never mind them stopping them gathering outside football stadiums. It's the extent of the people sometimes, because we saw it with the claps. They went onto Westminster Bridge, congregated an old clap for the NHS, which again is a special moment. But you're breaking that social distance ruling, and when they said they're going to try and keep social distancing in the Bundesliga games, but you can't do that on a pitch. And even by saying, yeah, it's fine there, but not on a pitch, because the players are still going to integrate with the other players that are coming off the bench, which then throws it all into question again.
No, I think it is definitely a scenario which could go in any sort of direction. It's definitely one to look out for in the coming weeks. There's reports on it every day, isn't there? Another story which has had a lot of attention, certainly in the last couple of weeks, I would say, is the proposed Newcastle takeover. We don't believe, but other sources have been reporting that Mike Ashley is finally ready to sell up. And it's a Saudi-based consortium who are called, I've just got it here, PCP Capital Partners. They are proposing to take over. They clearly have a lot of money, which is exciting the Newcastle fans. But one thing which is a concern is Saudi Arabia's record in relation to human rights. Now, this has had a lot of debate related to it. What are our thoughts on it? Harry, do you want to kick us off?
It's certainly going to be an interesting situation if it does go through. Pochettino has been listed as that man to take over if it does happen. £19 million a year, so it'd be a bit silly not to do that, especially because he'll get the budget that he wants at Tottenham. He'll literally have everything he wants if he does go to Newcastle. But it's exactly right. Will it happen? It probably will, because some owners aren't amazing in the Premier League when it comes to human rights, and just owners in general. So it'll probably get through. I believe it will get through. So, is it right? No. Would I be happy if Southampton went into that situation? I'd say no now, but if we did actually get bought, there's going to be a lot of fans that wish they were in that situation. So, jealousy, not so much, but it's going to be interesting, certainly, to see what happens and how fast they grow as well. Because you think of Manchester City and how they grew, and you think, would Newcastle do the same? Well, if you remember Manchester City, they had Stephen Ireland as one of their midfielders, and Newcastle aren't too far away from that situation at the moment. So, yes, it would take quite a few years, but they will become, I believe, an English powerhouse if they get taken over and money is planted into them.
We still can't really talk about the whole situation until it's over. But I mean, there's two ways Newcastle could go down this. They could do, a Monaco way where they just heavily invested, won everything once, and now they're in quite a bad situation. It's took them a couple of years to get back on the feet. There's also the report of the conflict of interest, with the Sheffield United owner Prince Abdullah. That might affect the takeover due to the crown power, and if the Premier League satisfied that will take precedence, so it could have that effect, then it won't go through. But I think Newcastle might be, especially the fans are looking they're going to be happy about it. You're going to try and get rid of Mike Ashley, but on the basis of it, are they just blindsided by some of these proposed, like deals and how much money they're going to get than the actual facts in reality?
Do you not think that the turmoil that Newcastle fans have been put under with 13 years with Ashley as owner, that they've had a horrible time? I know there's obviously worse things, but their club has been run by someone who ultimately doesn't care about anyone else but himself. that's
Yeah.
obviously up for debate, but it's certainly something which is thought of by a lot of people. Is that what is fueling Newcastle fans' desire, even when putting the human rights thing aside? They want their club to have a chance to flourish a bit more.
Well, Newcastle are a big club. They've got the stand, they've got the fans, they've got the history. They know what they want, and it's a promising acquisition. Like if they took over of another team, like if Huddersfield got taken over, they're going to take a lot longer than Newcastle would to get some revenue off the pitch. Whereas on it, it balanced quite well, I think, with the fans and the team if it happened. But it's just that when there's always that hanging uncertainty. If you remember last time when Amanda Staveley first came in and it didn't go through, you could see how disappointed Newcastle fans were. And I mean, Mike Ashley's desperate. I mean, Southampton have had to knock off some of their asking price as well, and Mike Ashley's having to do the same, even though he doesn't want it. But if I were Ashley, I'd be trying to get it off my hand as soon as possible, because it's really dragging his company name down and his name, rather than him. If you could just sell it and get out, and then people would probably forget about it for a while. It's just it's strange to see that if Newcastle could be a challenging team, because obviously in our lifetime we've not seen that. We've seen Newcastle drop down to Champions League times, whereas
Newcastle fans are dreaming of returning to the glory days of the late 90s and early 2000s, and to Bobby and Kevin Keegan and the likes of that.
If we could get Pochettino going, I'd love it if we beat them. That's the kind of Newcastle that you watch the Premier League years. You see that kind of team.
Yeah.
If you could get Newcastle back to a limelight, it'd be quite good.
It would be nice to see them back at the top, definitely. Purely because of the fan base and how passionate they are. They've been crying out for this for so long.
Obviously, it's hard to tell because we don't know if these owners have any sort of idea of how football works. But do you think that Pochettino would be given that time that Harry was talking about to actually build a team? Newcastle at the moment, I'm going to say they've got a lot of dead wood in their team. Joe Linton, has he scored one league goal last season?
I think he scored at Spurs, didn't he?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. He scored the winner at Spurs and then didn't score again. And we've just spoken today in a session of our class, the lowest possession in the league. I know they haven't done too badly, and Bruce hasn't done too badly, but there's a lot of improvements to be made. Will he be given the time if he was to go in there?
I don't think it'd be a quick fix. You see, there's hardly any examples, especially nowadays, where someone's come in, made 11 change. You're talking about 13 changes maybe if he's going to bring in his own squad. If you look on the face of it, Dubravka's a decent keeper. Will Poch want him, and the rest of the squad, there's not many. Alex St. Maximin's probably their best player on face of it. I can't see many of the other squad lasting. Would that transition time and that instant changes be enough for Pochettino, or do you think Pochettino would probably look at it and say, if in 2 years after, then I might be interested? Which route do you think it'd be?
The thing is, Newcastle's squad isn't totally different to Southampton's squad when Pochettino took over when we first came to the Premier League, and he moved us levels above, and we didn't even have that much of a budget. You think about a billionaire, a multi-billionaire owner giving him whatever he wants, any players he wants. That's Pochettino's dream. He's done it at Southampton. He's done it at Tottenham at a bigger scale, and now he gets to do sort of both in one. Start from A and go all the way to Z, rather than start at A to C or D to F. Tottenham. He can do anything he wants. And if that's their number one priority, if he's the manager that they're going to pay 19 million a year for, then they're going to give him the time.
Do you think that compared to when Pochettino first took over Southampton to Pochettino now, do you think his caliber of status is probably might be a bit too much for the Southampton version of Pochettino?
I'm not too sure, to be fair. He certainly grew quite a lot, because when he first came into the Premier League, I don't want this to be a Southampton section, but we sacked Nigel Adkins at a club a massive club favourite and brought in this Pochettino person. They got sacked from Espanyol, didn't speak the language, and we're very confused what was going on. He did a phenomenal job, moved on to Tottenham. He did a phenomenal job there. Has his stock decreased because he got sacked from Tottenham? Maybe, but probably not. But if you take away the name and you just look at the project, a mid-table team that wants to win the league, and they'll give him the budget for that, I think there's only a positive, especially with the fact that he'll get paid a pretty penny at the same time as well.
Yeah, I know it's odd to say, but I think Pochettino's the man that Spurs need right now, to be honest. Like they need that rebuild again, and the two jobs that he's had in the Premier League already, like Harry said, at Spurs and at Saints, those were two, teams that needed rebuilding, and he did great jobs with both of them. So, I mean, with the unlimited amount of resources that he could have at Newcastle, then why can't he succeed there? Go on, George.
You mentioned related to his stock and how it hasn't decreased as a result of his sacking. Surely, if that is the case, he'll be thinking any big job I could be in the running. So what would encourage him to go to Newcastle over, say, I don't know, Real Madrid? I know money talks, but there are a lot of clubs out there. I know he's constantly been linked with Man United. Maybe Solskjaer will continue to get more time. He seemed to turn it around before the lockdown came in. But I do think Poch has a lot of options, and maybe Newcastle is the one. Like you say, Devon, I think money will play a part, and maybe that'll be what gets him there.
The question is he, say if he did go to Real Madrid, it went out, but if he did, he's under immediate pressure there. You could say that the same at Newcastle, but I think he'll get given more time at Newcastle. I think he'll be able to sign the players he wants rather than being told the players he's going to sign, and then he has to fit them into a squad. And I think maybe the lack of knowledge that the new owners may or may not have will work in his favour, because he'll get all the responsibility, or as much responsibility as he wants. And I think the combination of being able to have the time, ambitious owners, and I think the fans will immediately like him. And I know that sounds weird, but at Real Madrid, the fans there are very, they've got very high standards. Bale won them a Champions League for an overhead kick, and they don't like him. And I think Newcastle are much more of a family-based club. You see how the fans are there. I think it's a big opportunity. It's a big opportunity for someone, and I think Pochettino would enjoy that, especially if he wants to come back to the Premier League as well.
And somebody who maybe would have hoped for more time in the job that he is in is Phil Neville. Now, this is also something which has been announced in the last week. If we're happy to move on, guys, to the England women's manager's role.
That's a great.
He's loving the transitions.
He's like off PowerPoint, isn't he?
Announced that it has been announced that Phil Neville will leave the England manager's job at the end of his contract, which I believe is it July 2021?
It is,
yeah.
Of course, the Euros which was set to be a home Euros, but will still be a home Euros. It was meant to be played next year, but because the men's Euros has been moved to 2021, the women's tournament has been sent back to 2022. Neville will not be in charge for that tournament. What are our immediate thoughts to the sacking, Sam?
Probably justified, to be honest. I mean, the results after the World Cup especially have been pretty poor. I think they get knocked out of the She Believes Cup in like the initial sort of round robin stage, and also you could argue that although the World Cup was a great moment for the team, still it wasn't a better performance than the 2015 World Cup. So it's tough for him, but probably a justified decision in my opinion.
Yeah, Neville's not got a better record than Sampson did in his 54 games in charge. Even though he's won a lot with them, and the mentality of the women's game seems a lot stronger now. Neville's been involved and the media attention's increased, but there could be a case that could have increased over time anyway, especially with how much BBC have put into it. 7, as you mentioned, his record at the minute, 7 losses in the last 11 games, which is not great form as somebody that's just come, it's a team that's come out of the World Cup thinking, next time's might be our time. My problem is the timing of it, because if you're sacking a manager and that squad knows that they're only going to have one more tournament with that manager, what I know in a club sense it'd probably be like this rather than a national team, but would that demotivate the players to think, well, there's somebody else coming in anyway, why would we adhere to his instructions? Or do you think that might encourage him to, perform for Neville for him to go out on a high?
I think because it's an Olympic Games final tournament, isn't it? I think the desire to get a gold medal is something very unique, and I think that will push them further. I just think, like you said, the timing's odd because you don't know how he's going to do it at the Olympics. What if he wins a gold medal, or he guides the team to win a gold medal? It's a bit odd at that point of view, but like you said, I think he's not had his contract renewed because they've not seen progression, and I think, like Devon said, the women's game would have progressed anyway, just naturally. And I don't think Neville obviously played a part, but I don't think it was all because of Phil Neville that it progressed.
George, as the host, I'll put this on you. Do you think that England should have, if Neville was set to go, get him out of the job now, get somebody in to take him into the Olympics and then the Euros and World Cup?
I think there's reason for. There's reason to say that they should have done that. There's also reason not to. The reason to say they should have done it, it would have given the new manager, who we still don't know who it's going to be, it would have given them more time, of course. I personally think the prospect of him being there for the Olympics is a weird one. So, yeah, I do think that could have been something which they've gone down. Ultimately, they've said he's going to see out his contract. Maybe that's due to they feel a loyalty to him that he should be allowed to see out his contract. They maybe didn't want it to end on bad terms. I know there's been a lot of discussions in the press since all these poor results that he would eventually leave. Maybe the announcement has come at a weird time, but I think maybe they did feel that attachment to him that they thought, let's just let him see it out and then give the new manager a year before the home Euros. But it's certainly interesting who comes in. Who are some of the people you maybe think might be being lined up? Sam, have you got anyone in mind?
I think Casey Stoney's been a name that's been mentioned a lot recently, with their guiding Manchester United to a league title in their first season and doing pretty well in their first season in the Women's Super League. Also, of course, Emma Hayes, who has done fantastically well with Chelsea. I think they've been unbeaten in all competitions since April 2019, which is just crazy. But I think she's had some issues in the past with the FA that maybe rule her out. Are there any other suggestions, guys?
Jill Ellis has been brought up, hasn't she? The USA manager, because of her double triumph in the 2015 and in 2019. Again, there were issues brought up with some either comments or not. She was keen to come. A lot of people were keen to bring her in, but she didn't really seem popular on experts' opinion. The only other major one was there were a lot of talk if a male figure were going to come in again and replace Neville, like they did replacing along with Sampson. Nick Cushing, the former Manchester City manager, 6 trophies in 6 years, but he's only just moved to New York City, so it depends if he wants to, quit he's just broke into the men's game, whether he wants to come back to the women's and take a bigger role. That's the biggest question.
Do we think that the FA would ever consider bringing in someone similar to Neville, a male ex-pro who's never managed before? Do you think they would be satisfied enough with how Neville's reign has gone to go and do it again or not?
I think go on, Harry.
I think Neville's experience sort of helped him because he worked at Valencia before, so I think they need someone that's had a role in football. But I'm not too sure. It's all good having those ex-pros that have been okay here, then everywhere, but they do need experience. And I think someone like Emma Hayes would be a great option. But for me, is leaving a women's Super League team like Chelsea, maybe like Manchester City and Arsenal, bigger than an England job in this sort of context?
Especially with the money that's being pumped into the club levels, it might not be. I'm not sure. Sam, what's your opinion on this?
Can you just repeat the question, Harry? Sorry.
So all I was thinking is that the England job's obviously massive, but is it bigger than working at the Manchester City, Arsenal, Chelsea? Because, for example, in the men's game, you wouldn't see one of those, or it's unlikely that you'd see a manager from one of those teams move to England. And I think it's similar in the Women's Super League as well. And I was just wondering, do you think someone like Emma Hayes, if she didn't have the problems with the FA, would move anywhere? Because she's already a massive club in Chelsea.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's a bigger problem with the women's game. Obviously, the national team has a huge profile now, but I think the Women's Super League is still struggling with the lack of TV coverage and also struggling with attendances. I think Chelsea only get what, I think it was Joe Curry who we were talking to yesterday, said Chelsea only average 1,000 or 2,000 a game, which is poor really. But I think if England came calling, I think most coaches would take the leap. Yeah.
I think the thing with Hayes, something else that Joe Curry mentioned, was she wants to win the Champions League, which is obviously something she's been at Chelsea for such a long time. She would maybe want to complete the set. Obviously, we've already spoken about the season. The women's season has been disrupted like the men's has. We don't know if she's going to have an opportunity to do it, but maybe the fact that Neville's there till 2021, maybe before that point, Hayes could do that with Chelsea and then slot into the role. Who knows?
So it's just a thing of, like, when do they start that initial process of bringing somebody in? Do they start this upcoming season getting in someone straight away just to jump into the role, or do they wait till Neville's done to give him the respect to finish his role before someone, his seat's still warm kind of thing? It's a weird time, and I know we're talking about if buts because the next season might not even start till next year. There's a lot of hearsay, isn't there, really?
Yeah, it's all predictions at the moment.
I imagine they'll have some people in mind, but like you say, in the current climate, how do you interview people? You can do it over video call, but I'm sure they'll want to take longer to make their call and eventually come to it.
That's how Worksop did it.
Someone like Alex Scott may be up for contention as well.
Yeah, we haven't spoken about that. There's been a lot of female pundits who have impressed on Sky, BT as well, BBC too, with Casey Stoney, for example, and obviously Scott is there too. You brought her up, Sam. Do you think Scott has shown through her punditry that she could make a good coach?
I think she's had an incredible experience as a player. I think she's close or over 150 caps for England. So, and she's shown her knowledge, like you say, on BBC and Sky. So, she's definitely a contender. Yeah.
To flip a question onto your heads now, not to take it away from women's football or anything, but do you think Neville's decision could have been, hurried to make this because he might have something else lined up in the men's game?
I'm not sure. If he did a great job, I don't want to sound harsh, Neville. If he did a great job, there'll be people left, right, and centre. But if I was looking at his track record with England, I'd say World Cup semi-final. This may be harsh, but probably the teams they came up against, that might be the bare minimum. Poor in the second Super League Cup. I think maybe if you said they did better, he could go maybe to a Championship League One club, but he's not impressed massively. It's got to be said. Yeah. He's not impressed massively. Maybe he might go into a coaching setup at a different team and try and work the way through like he did at Valencia. But for me, I don't think so.
I mean, you could argue that the profile of the team's got bigger, but like you guys have mentioned, that sort of happens automatically. So he's the performances are sort of leveled out with how Mark Sampson was doing, to be honest, and even got worse towards the end. So,
do you think the FA then, with all this media attention, will try and get someone more media trained or media friendly, like Southgate kind of is?
I'm not sure that will necessarily be at the forefront of their minds. It is probably one factor that they consider, but in terms of they'll be looking at who's won what, who's going to come in and bring that success, because England are at that point now where they're kind of nearly there. They've had 2 World Cup semi-finals in a row. They've won the She Believes, even though they didn't this year.
They just can't beat the US.
They need
someone
over the line. So I think they will be looking to bring someone in who has had success, and there's a lot of contenders there, as we've said. If we go on to now the final bit of this week's show, it's convenient really that we finished talking about Phil Neville, because we're going to do a quiz now. If you haven't listened to the show before, when we've been on Phantom Radio, I've done a quiz on there every single week. Well, we did 7 shows before we were forced to stop. Every quiz, every week, I try and make it kind of relevant to a story within the news. And I mentioned we've finished with Phil Neville, and it's convenient. This week's quiz, you've guessed it, is on Phil Neville. Play along at home if you're listening.
We don't need to know.
Let us know how you get on if you listen afterwards and you're happy with your score, or even if you're not happy with your score, you can find us on Twitter at _Fourmation. Can we maybe, if we do a YouTube, get that up on the screen? I don't know. We'll see how.
Do a Rafa Benitez.
If you watch,
good luck to whoever's doing that.
You can see it or you won't. There it is. We're also on Facebook. You can send us in your comments on there. After 7 shows on Phantom Radio, I can tell you that the scores between the 3 guys were Harry top with 21, and Devon and Sam were on the same with 17. We'll keep these scores running because I think Harry is deserving of that after all those.
Thank you very much, George.
Is he? Are you sure?
The thing is, at the minute, Sam is on such a run with our own personal quizzes that I'm going to end up in last place now. I'm miles behind everybody.
Why I mentioned the sportsmanship from Harry is during the duration of these quizzes are very poor. So
all I'm saying is that I can't see your internet at the moment. In the studio, you can sort of see it. I don't know what you're typing up on your phone, but I'm gonna believe you.
I trust you will, that none of you will cheat, because that's the spirit of it.
I'd never do that.
The way that we will do this, which is similar to how we have done it on our quizzes as a group. I will ask each question. We will go question answer rather than all the questions then the answers like we would do on the show. And I want you to hold your paper up when I come to you, okay?
Ooh.
So there's 5 questions, 5 points up for grabs.
I miss the music, mate. We need
no tension music.
Grab a notepad. It's easier to record how you're getting on. Question number 1 is
Go on, Bradley Walsh.
What is the name of the last female England women's manager?
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
So,
I'm not sure.
Neville is the current England women's manager. Devon mentioned before him was Mark Sampson. I can tell you look a bit puzzled, so I'm going to say that this person, the answer I'm thinking of was the manager before Mark Sampson. What's their name?
I've got a guess. I'm not confident, but it's an educated guess.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I don't.
Write an answer down, or
I've got a name, but I don't.
Yeah.
This might be an American goalkeeper. I'm not.
Okay, so let's hear it. Who was it, guys? Devon, we'll start with you.
I've just got a line because I have to have hands up.
Fair enough. You're fine. Harry, what have you gone with?
I put Hope Solo.
Hope
That's
so.
what I put.
Sam,
Hope Solo.
I put Hope Solo.
She was still playing when Sam.
You've both written that her name was Hope. What I reveal is that her surname wasn't Solo, it was Powell.
Oh, so she's called Hope.
Yeah.
We were thinking
why-
of the
That's why I thought of
American
it.
Dog
That must be
team,
why I
yeah.
thought of
I
it.
think Hope
Darn.
Solo. I really don't know where that came from.
Right.
Then.
That's okay.
I think me and Sam
Now
deserve half
you
a point.
mentioned the name. Now I know.
Question number 2.
I know her face, but I couldn't.
Of course
I
you
couldn't
do.
put a name- I couldn't put a name to it. No, he says.
Neville
Yes, I do.
played for only 2 clubs during his career. They were Man United and Everton.
I thought that was going to be the question.
I'm not asking you the clubs. That's way too easy.
Oh, I've just written down.
They were Man United and Everton. But at which club did he make more Premier League appearances?
Ooh.
It's a 50-50. It's easy, isn't
Oh,
it?
come on.
I've got no idea.
It's a difficult one, I must say.
Just take a punt. You
No,
can't.
I've taken a punt. But I'm not confident.
Okay,
mean-
it looks like you've got an answer. Which club do you think he made more Premier League appearances?
I've gone for Everton.
You've gone for Everton, Harry. Which club have you gone for?
Same as Mr. Devon Cash.
Oh,
I've put
I've
Everton
gone-
as well.
Gone for Everton, Sam.
It's gone Man U.
Will Sam make up the difference?
For Man United. I can tell you, Neville played 242 times for Everton in the Premier League.
No.
For Man
That's
United,
a lot.
he played 263
Yes!
times.
Darn it!
Sam
Darn it!
earns a point.
Come on.
Sam's cheating.
Okay. Question
I knew
number:
it all along.
Thought that was obvious.
how many England senior caps did Neville collect during his playing career? For this one, whichever one of you is closest, you will earn the point. I can tell you, he played for England over an 11-year period. If that helps, I don't know. How many caps? Again, it's just about having a guess, isn't it?
just that.
It definitely is. Because
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't think of him in an England shirt though. That's my problem. I can't envisage
I
him.
can confirm he played for England.
Yeah, I just can't think of it.
really?
Devon, have you got an answer?
Well, that has shocked me.
You've got an, what have you got? Harry, have you got an answer?
46.
I went 24.
46.
Ooh.
I'll just write these down. 24. Sam, what have you gone for?
I went 55.
You went for
Ooh.
55.
Ooh.
Okay.
George is doing the maths. He's just trying to fill the gap.
One of you,
Get your hands out. Come on. Count on.
one of you is very close indeed. I can tell you that it's Sam. It was 59 caps Neville got. So that's another
Come
point
on.
back for Sam. Devon and Harry yet to get off the mark for this
The
one.
form is my lethal quiz form. Is.
Right,
Today.
rusty. Because I hosted the last quiz. Now I'm rusty. I'm rusty out of answer.
Question number 4. Neville is, of course, that's what I've written on my document, is of course part
Of course.
of 92. But in which year did the group of players purchase Salford City?
Hmm.
In which year? I think this one's quite tough.
It's between two.
I've gone for a year.
Go on,
I'm
Devon.
not confident. But
Stick your
I've gone
guess
for a
there.
year.
I think
what division were they were in when they
That's the
started?
thing, yeah.
yeah, I think I'm too early, yeah, but I've gone for 2015.
2015. Harry, what have you got?
Yeah.
It-
Same as Devon. I put
Also
2015 as well.
15. Sam.
I went 17.
You have
2017.
17. Okay.
Yeah.
I can tell you that Sam hasn't got this one right.
Oh,
Neither have Harry and Devon.
Is it 14? Okay.
2014.
Oh.
Not far off, but it has to get.
I would-
it's way off.
I was trying to do it quickly in my head, but I couldn't
It's a
remember.
low-scoring week. You clearly need to do your research
I
on
did-
Neville a bit.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Phil Neville.
I don't you'll
Next week
lose
I'm going to
sleep
get a
over that,
poster on
Harry.
here. Big poster.
Well, next time I'm really bored, might just.
Okay. Question number 5. Now, I think this is pretty difficult. I would not have told you this. In July 2015, Neville moved to Valencia as a coach and first worked under a current Premier League manager.
Oh,
Who was it? It's one of the 20 Premier League managers. He was in the job when Neville moved to Valencia, July 2015. Have a think. In fact, maybe this is doable in terms.
I think it's guess. I say that I don't know if mine's right.
I can't think of Premier League managers now.
I'm not going to say anything because if I say it is wrong, then I'm going to look like an idiot or more of an idiot. So I'm just going to sit here silently, waiting for the answer.
It's another one which is worth a guess. I would say.
Steve Bruce.
Can imagine him eating paella on a Spanish beach.
Why can't I can't think of any managers.
I'll give you a bit more time. We can probably edit this. In fact, maybe we'll just watch him sit in agony. I don't know.
See.
I genuinely just forgot all teams and that.
Go on, put a guess down because you've had a fair amount of time. Admittedly, this isn't general knowledge, but I didn't say it was a general knowledge quiz. I said it was a Phil Neville quiz.
That's fine by me.
Devon, you got an answer?
Yeah, it's not right, but just because you've got a Norwich badge on, I've gone for Daniel Farker.
Gone for Daniel Farker. Okay, Harry, what have you gone for?
I went with Nuno Espirito Santo, probably spelled incorrectly.
Sam.
Yeah. I put Moyes, but I realised he went to Sociedad, didn't he? Not
He did
Valencia.
go to Sociedad. Harry was sitting there very relaxed from the start when I read that question out. He took a punt and he was absolutely bang on.
I don't know the word punt.
I couldn't even think of Nuno.
Let's just say that my original answer was going to be Rafa Benitez, then remembered that it's not Premier League.
And with that is the end of this week's quiz. Well done to Sam. He's the winner of it. Only just, it should be said.
Yeah, it was still 4. It was still 4.
Was that too difficult? Let me know.
I like the
if you're
difficult
listening
ones.
and you're playing along and it was too difficult. At the end of it, that's now 8 rounds of the quiz. Harry's ahead on 22. Sam has closed the gap marginally. Today he's on 19.
Is that the first one I've won?
Devon's still sitting there at the bottom on 17.
Like Wednesday in real life, but in quizzes.
As I said, let us know at the _formation on Twitter or on Facebook how you got on. And let us know on our socials as well. Devon, where can we find you on Twitter?
You can find me at Devon Cash Media.
And Harry, where can we find you on Twitter?
At Harry_Tizards. At H_Tizard, I believe. I don't know. One of the two.
That means
One of the two.
don't follow him then.
And Sam, where can we find you?
Sam_Allen567.
And you can find me at GWilson1000. I think that's all we've got for today, isn't it, chaps? I think we've enjoyed it. It's maybe been quite different doing it on Skype, but we've done it. I think we're nearly at an hour. I'm not too sure, but
it's we're on 50 minutes.
I think
that's good. It's a good time.
It's gone all right. So
it feels weird talking into like these and as normal ones and actually having...
Yeah. It feels more awkward for some reason.
Yeah, we will get used to it. But that is all we've got for you this week. Hopefully, all things considered, this will go well, and we will see you again next week with another episode of The Fourmation. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. See you later.
See you later.